Welcome to this deep dive. We're going to be exploring James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Oh, fantastic.
We're really diving into those excerpts you selected, aiming for that, that sweet spot of like a quick but thorough understanding.
Right.
And you know us, we always love those aha moments.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to break down those core principles of habit building.
Okay.
And, even more importantly, to find those actionable gems you can start using like right away.
Love it.
So I'm really curious to get started.
Yeah.
One of the things that really struck me from the excerpts was this emphasis on like the power of tiny gains.
Yeah.
How seemingly insignificant actions, when repeated consistently, can lead to like these remarkable results.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I think so often we get tripped up by focusing on, massive overhauls instead of appreciating the power of those tiny, consistent tweaks.
Right.
It's the small things done consistently that really add up.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by this tiny gains idea. Like, how does that actually play out in the real world? Like, can you give me some concrete examples?
Sure. So Clear uses this brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
Imagine a plane leaving Los Angeles for New York.
Okay.
If the pilot shifts course just 3.5 degrees south, guess what?
What?
You land in Washington, D.C. instead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it really highlights how seemingly insignificant adjustments compounded over time
Right.
can lead to drastically different outcomes.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
So it's less about those grand resolutions and
Yeah.
more about setting up a system for
Okay.
consistent incremental progress.
Precisely. And here's where it gets even more compelling. This principle cuts both ways.
Oh,
It's not just about positive habits.
okay.
Tiny negative actions repeated day after day can lead to equally significant,
Oh,
but negative results.
interesting.
Think of it like accumulating debt.
Okay.
Small slips can snowball over time.
So it's a double-edged sword then.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
We need to be mindful of those little everyday choices,
Right.
recognizing their long-term impact.
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned something called the Valley of Disappointment earlier. What's that all about?
Yes, the valley of disappointment. It's that early phase of habit formation where you're putting in the effort, but seeing minimal, if any, results.
Yeah, I've definitely been there.
It's like trying to melt an ice cube.
Okay.
You need to apply a certain amount of heat just to get it to 32 degrees before it even begins to melt.
Right.
This is where a lot of people throw in the towel, unfortunately.
It's so true. It's like we expect to see that linear progress.
Yeah.
But the reality is habits often work on like a delayed return system, right?
Exactly.
So how do we push through that initial phase without losing steam? Like, what's the secret sauce?
Well, I think instead of getting discouraged by the lack of immediate visible change, think of it as building up potential energy.
Okay.
You're laying the groundwork for a breakthrough.
Right. I like that.
Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential, where results seem to suddenly appear after a period of, well, seemingly insignificant progress.
Interesting.
Think of it like that moment when the ice cube finally hits 32 degrees and starts to melt.
Okay, so that's helpful, like a way to reframe it.
Yeah.
It reminds us that consistent effort, even when we don't see those, immediate results,
Yeah.
is setting the stage for those aha moments we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about these tiny gains, but I'm curious about the actual mechanics of habit formation.
Sure.
How do these habits actually form in our brains?
Right. Well, to really understand how habits work, Clear breaks down habit formation into 4 distinct stages.
Okay.
Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay.
And this framework can be a game changer for understanding how to form new habits and break old ones.
A game changer. Okay, I'm all ears. So let's break down this habit loop, as you called it, starting with the cue.
Okay.
What exactly is a cue in this context?
Well, think of the cue as a trigger that kicks off a specific behavior.
Okay.
It's information that predicts a reward.
Okay.
For our ancestors, it was cues like the scent of ripe fruit or the sound of running water,
Right.
signaling survival needs.
Makes sense.
Today, it might be that notification ping on your phone or the smell of freshly brewed coffee.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So it's anything that sparks like a chain reaction in our brain leading to a particular action.
Right, but the cue alone isn't enough.
Okay.
It's the craving, the motivational force behind the habit that really gets things moving.
Okay.
We don't act solely out of habit, but because of a desire to change our internal state.
Interesting.
That coffee aroma isn't just information. It triggers a desire for the caffeine kick, the taste, that feeling of alertness.
Right, right. And I'm guessing this is where things can go sideways, right?
Yeah.
We're craving something that isn't good for us.
Exactly.
That's how we get stuck in those bad habits.
Exactly. That craving fuels the next step.
Yeah.
The response, the actual habit itself.
Okay.
This could be a thought, a feeling, or an action. It's sipping that coffee, scrolling through social media, or biting your nails.
All the things.
But here's the catch, though.
Uh-uh.
The response only happens if you're motivated enough. And if the action itself is easy enough to do.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cue sparks a craving.
Right.
The craving gives us the push, and if it's doable,
Right.
we get the response.
Yeah.
But what about the reward? Isn't that the ultimate factor that determines whether a habit sticks?
Absolutely. The reward is the payoff, the
Right.
satisfying feeling that reinforces the entire loop
Okay.
and tells our brain, do this again.
Do this again.
Yeah. The reward could be the energy boost from the coffee, the dopamine hit from social media, or even the temporary stress relief from nail biting.
Right, all those little rewards that keep us coming back for more.
Exactly. And the reward is what ultimately determines if the loop gets repeated or fades away.
So this entire cycle can happen like on autopilot,
Mhm.
which explains why we often find ourselves engaging in habits without even thinking about them.
That's right. And this highlights why awareness is crucial.
Okay.
If you want to change a habit, you need to identify the cues, cravings, responses, and rewards that make up your personal habit loops.
So we need to become aware of these loops if we want to change them.
Exactly. It's like those Japanese railway conductors who point and call out each action they perform.
Okay.
It may seem tedious,
Right.
but it dramatically reduces errors and improves safety.
Interesting analogy.
By bringing our actions into conscious awareness, we gain more control over them.
I love that. It emphasizes that we can't change what we aren't aware of, right?
Exactly.
Now, Claire also mentions this thing called a habit scorecard.
Yes.
How does that fit into this idea of awareness?
Well, the habit scorecard is a simple but powerful tool for gaining clarity on your current habits.
Oh,
Right? Make a list of your daily habits and score them as positive, negative, or neutral.
Oh.
It's a way to objectively analyze your behaviors and pinpoint areas you want to change.
So we're getting real with ourselves, taking stock of what's actually going on.
Exactly. Shining a light on those automatic behaviors.
Okay, so we've covered the power of tiny gains,
Yes.
the mechanics of the habit loop, and the importance of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But, how do we go from understanding to action? What are the practical steps to actually changing our habits?
Right. That's where we move from mechanics to strategy.
Okay, I'm ready for some strategies.
Clear outlines several approaches, but one that stands out is focusing on identity-based habits.
Identity-based habits, okay.
This shifts the focus from outcomes to becoming a certain type of person.
Oh, interesting.
So instead of I want to lose weight, it's I am a healthy person.
Okay.
Instead of I want to write a book, it's I am a writer.
Right, so it's a more fundamental shift.
Yeah.
It's like we're changing our self-perception, not just our actions.
Exactly. What you do consistently is a reflection of who you believe you are.
Okay, so our habits ultimately reflect our identity.
Exactly. So if you want to change your habits, you need to change your self-perception.
Okay, so it's another feedback loop.
Exactly. Your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits.
Interesting. It's like a dance between the two.
And when your actions and self-image are in sync, change feels less forced
Okay.
and more like an expression of who you are.
I can see how that would be powerful.
Yeah.
So it's less about striving for a goal and more about becoming the type of person who naturally embodies the habits we want to develop.
Precisely. And this can be incredibly powerful because when your behavior is aligned with your identity, you're not relying solely on willpower.
Right?
You're simply living in accordance with your self-concept.
That makes a lot of sense. It takes the pressure off in a way.
Exactly. It becomes more effortless.
Okay, so besides this focus on identity, what are some other strategies for making it easier to build good habits and break bad ones? Because I think we could all use a little help in that department.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the power of our surroundings comes in.
Our surroundings.
Yeah. Remember that cue that triggers the habit loop?
Mm.
Well, we can strategically design our environment to make cues for good habits stand out.
Okay.
while making cues for bad habits invisible.
So we're talking about setting up our environment to support the behaviors we want to cultivate.
Absolutely. Think about it. We're more likely to notice things that stand out.
Right. That makes sense.
So if you want to make a habit a big part of your life, make its cue a big part of your environment.
Okay. Listening.
Want to drink more water?
No.
Keep a full water bottle, visible and within reach.
Okay. Simple but effective.
Want to read more?
Okay.
Keep a book on your bedside table or in your bag.
I like it.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, if you want to break a bad habit,
Right.
make its cue disappear or hard to reach, want to stop snacking on junk food, don't keep it in the house,
Right.
spend too much time on social media, delete those apps.
Exactly. It's not always about pure willpower.
Right.
Often it's about making the best choice the easiest choice.
Makes sense.
Right.
It reminds me of those studies where simply rearranging food in a cafeteria dramatically impacted people's food choices.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. But what happens when we can't completely control our environment? You know, like what if our workspace is set up in a way that's not conducive to productivity?
That's a great point. Yeah. And even if you can't control everything,
Right.
Clear suggests creating habit islands.
Habit islands.
Yeah, small zones within your existing space dedicated to specific habits.
Okay, I like that.
So designated chair for reading or a dedicated workspace for focused work.
Right.
By consistently linking those spaces with specific activities, you build stronger contextual cues,
Right.
making it easier to trigger the desired behavior.
So we're talking about creating these like pockets of intention within our broader environment.
Exactly.
Smart. But is breaking bad habits as simple as like removing those cues? You know, getting rid of the junk food or deleting the social media apps?
It can be, but often bad habits have strong internal triggers,
Oh, right.
like stress, boredom, or loneliness.
Right. So even if we get rid of those external cues, those internal triggers can still pull us back into unwanted behaviors.
Exactly.
So how do we address those?
Well, that's where the concept of making it unsatisfying comes in.
Okay.
And that's a whole other conversation.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Making bad habits unsatisfying. Tell me more.
Okay, well, this strategy plays on our brain's wiring for instant gratification.
Right.
Remember, we're hardwired to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed consequences.
That explains why it's so tempting to reach for that donut, even when we know it's not the healthiest choice.
Exactly. The donut offers immediate pleasure. Yeah. While the benefits of a healthy choice often feel distant and less tangible.
Right. The struggle is real.
It is.
So the trick is to shift that balance of pleasure and pain,
Mm-hmm.
making those bad habits less appealing in the moment.
Exactly.
So how do we actually do that? How do we make those bad habits less desirable?
Well, there are a few tactics you can try.
Okay.
One is to use a habit contract.
I have a contract. Okay.
You publicly commit to a specific behavior and outline the consequences for breaking that commitment. It's
What?
like increasing the immediate cost of the bad habit.
Like that pilot who used a habit contract with his wife and trainer to help him lose weight.
Right, exactly.
If he didn't meet his goals, there were real consequences.
Right, it raises the state.
And even if you don't go for like a formal contract, simply having an accountability partner can be hugely helpful.
Absolutely.
It's like having a built-in consequence for slipping up.
Right.
Knowing that someone else is, you know, in the loop,
Yeah.
cheering you on, keeping you accountable, can be a powerful motivator.
That's right. And remember, technology can help too.
Oh, of course.
There are tons of apps and websites for tracking your habits and sharing progress with others.
It's all about leveraging that social aspect to like boost your commitment, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Social support can be a game changer, that's for sure.
It is.
But before we wrap up part one of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more principle that Clear emphasizes,
Sure.
and that's finding the right habits for you.
Right.
This is where things get like really personal and insightful, don't you think?
Absolutely, because what works for one person may fall flat for another.
Right.
We all have unique strengths, passions, and goals.
So it's not just about adopting any good habit.
Right.
It's about finding those that resonate with who we are
Yeah,
and where we want to go.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Clear compares it to finding a game where the odds are in your favor.
Okay, a game.
Yeah, he references those famous chess prodigies again.
Right.
Their natural talent for chess, combined with a supportive environment, set them up for success.
Yeah.
It's about playing to our strengths
Right.
and finding activities that tap into our natural abilities.
It's like that saying, choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life, right?
Exactly.
When we find those activities that feel like play, that ignite our passion and enthusiasm,
Yeah.
it no longer feels like a chore.
Hmm.
It becomes an integral part of who we are.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
Because when we're engaged in activities that feel aligned with our true selves,
Yes.
the motivation comes naturally.
Right.
It's no longer about forcing ourselves to do something.
Right, right.
It's about embracing those activities that feel inherently rewarding.
This has been a fantastic start to our exploration of atomic habits.
It has.
We've uncovered some powerful principles from the power of tiny gains and the habit loop to the importance of environment design
Right.
and finding habits that resonate with you personally. But there's so much more to explore, wouldn't you say?
There is. We haven't even touched on making good habits satisfying, the nitty-gritty of habit tracking.
Oh, right.
Or the challenges of maintaining motivation over time.
Well, luckily for all of us,
Yes.
this is just part one of our deep dive.
I'm excited for the next part.
Me too. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Because we'll be back soon to delve deeper into the science of habit formation
Okay.
and uncover even more practical strategies for creating lasting change.
Fantastic.
See you soon.
See you soon. You know, as we were discussing those chess prodigies, it really struck me how their environment played such a crucial role in shaping their habits and ultimately their success.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Like, we're not just products of our willpower, but also of the systems and structures we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely.
This brings us to another important principle, making good habits satisfying.
Yes.
But let's face it, no matter how much we understand the logic behind good habits, if they don't, feel good, we're less likely to stick with them.
Exactly. That's where understanding our brain's reward system comes in.
Okay.
We're naturally wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, even if it means sacrificing long-term gains for that immediate gratification.
That explains why it's so easy to reach for that extra cookie, even when we know it's not the healthiest choice.
Right.
The cookie offers that instant gratification, while the benefits of eating healthy are often delayed and less obvious.
Precisely. The challenge is to bridge that gap between the immediate and the delayed,
Okay.
to make those good habits feel as rewarding in the moment as possible.
So how do we make those healthy choices feel as tempting as that cookie? Like, how do we make those good habits more immediately satisfying?
Clear suggests a few clever strategies.
Yeah.
One is to bundle a habit you want to build with something you already enjoy.
Okay.
For example, if you're trying to exercise more, you could listen to your favorite podcast or audiobook while you work out.
That's a great idea. It's like sneaking in the good habit while you're already doing something pleasurable.
Exactly. You're essentially piggybacking on an existing source of enjoyment.
Yeah.
Another strategy is to reward yourself immediately after completing the habit.
Okay. I like that.
It could be something as simple as taking a few minutes to relax and savor a cup of tea after a workout, or allowing yourself to watch your favorite show after tackling a challenging task.
It's like giving yourself a little pat on the back for a job well done, acknowledging your efforts and making the experience more positive.
And these small rewards can create a powerful positive feedback loop, making it more likely that you'll repeat the behavior in the future. It's not about denying yourself. It's about being strategic with rewards.
This reminds me of that family who was saving for a trip to Europe.
Oh, right.
They decided to reward themselves every time they cooked at home instead of eating out. It turned saving money into a game, a way to earn those little rewards and celebrate their progress towards their goal.
That's a brilliant example. They reframed the act of saving money from something that felt restrictive to something that felt empowering and enjoyable. And that shift in perspective can make all the difference.
It seems like the key takeaway here is that building lasting habits isn't just about willpower or discipline. It's about being smart about how we structure our habits to make them more appealing and enjoyable.
Absolutely. Now, even when we manage to make those good habits feel rewarding, there's still the hurdle of consistency. That's where habit tracking comes in. It might seem simple, but it can be a game changer.
I've always been curious about habit tracking. What's so powerful about the simple act of, like, checking off a box on a calendar?
There's a lot more psychology at play than you might think.
Okay.
First of all, habit tracking provides visual proof of your progress.
Right.
Seeing a string of X's on a calendar can be incredibly motivating It reminds you that you're capable of consistency and that you're moving in the right direction, even if it's one small step at a time.
It's like creating a tangible record of your commitment and dedication.
Precisely. And it's not just about reflecting on the past. It's about propelling yourself forward. That empty square on your calendar for tomorrow can be a powerful motivator. You don't want to break the chain. You want to keep that momentum going.
It's like each successful day builds on the one before it, creating a ripple effect of positive action.
And perhaps, most importantly, habit tracking is inherently satisfying. There's a sense of accomplishment that comes with crossing an item off your to-do list or marking an X in your calendar. It gives you a feeling of closure and reinforces that sense of progress.
It's those small wins that keep us going, aren't they? Those little bursts of satisfaction that fuel our motivation.
Absolutely. And those feelings of satisfaction tap into our brain's reward system,
Yeah.
reinforcing the habit loop and making it more likely that we'll repeat the behavior in the future.
So habit tracking is a clever way to leverage our brain's natural wiring to make those good habits even more appealing and easier to stick with.
Exactly. It's a simple but effective strategy for building consistency and maintaining motivation over time. And if you find you're struggling to stick with those habits, even with tracking, an accountability partner can be a game changer. We touched on this briefly before, but let's dive deeper.
I'm all ears. How can having an accountability partner help make those bad habits less appealing?
Think back to the concept of making bad habits unsatisfying. An accountability partner can provide that external source of discomfort that makes it less appealing to slip up.
Okay.
They act as a mirror, reflecting back our commitments and holding us to a higher standard.
It's like having someone else invested in our success who is there to celebrate our wins and offer support when we, stumble.
Exactly. And that sense of shared responsibility can be incredibly powerful. We're social creatures by nature, and we often respond better to external motivation than to internal willpower alone.
So finding an accountability partner is like adding rocket fuel to your habit-changing efforts. But how do you go about finding the right person? What qualities should you look for?
That's a great question. The ideal accountability partner is someone who is supportive and encouraging, but also someone who isn't afraid to hold you accountable. They should be someone you trust and respect, someone who is also committed to their own growth and development.
So it's about finding someone who understands the journey, who gets the challenges and rewards of habit change firsthand, someone who will cheer you on, but also give you a gentle nudge when you need it.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to experiment. You might have to try out a few different partnerships before you find the perfect fit.
And if you can't find someone in person, there's always the option of, online communities and forums where you can connect with people who are working on similar goals. There's a whole world of support out there.
That's right. Technology has opened up so many avenues for finding connection and accountability, so there's really no excuse for going it alone.
We've covered a lot of ground so far. We've explored the power of tiny gains, the habit loop, the impact of environment design, the importance of making habits satisfying, the magic of habit tracking, and the support of accountability partners. But there's one key principle we haven't delved into yet: finding the right habits for you. This is where things get really personal and insightful.
Absolutely. Because what works for one person may not work for another. We're all unique individuals with our own set of strengths, weaknesses, passions, and goals.
Yeah.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
So it's not just about blindly adopting any good habit. It's about being discerning and finding those habits that truly resonate with who we are and what we want to achieve. It's about aligning our actions with our authentic selves.
Exactly. Clear emphasizes this point by encouraging us to find our game. He uses the analogy of those chess prodigies again.
Right.
Their natural talent for chess, combined with a supportive environment, set them up for success. It's about playing to our strengths and finding activities that tap into our natural abilities.
It's like that saying, choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life, right? When we find those activities that feel like play, that ignite our passion and enthusiasm, it no longer feels like a chore. It becomes an integral part of who we are.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Because when we're engaged in activities that feel aligned with our true selves, the motivation comes naturally. It's no longer about forcing ourselves to do something. It's about embracing those activities that feel inherently rewarding.
So how do we go about finding those games, those activities where the odds are in our favor? How do we discover those habits that are truly right for us?
It all starts with self-awareness. Take some time to reflect on your strengths, your interests, your values. What are you naturally drawn to? What activities make you lose track of time? What are you curious about? The answers to these questions can provide valuable clues.
It's about paying attention to those sparks of interest, those moments when we feel genuinely engaged and energized. It's about tuning into our own internal compass.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try out different activities, explore new hobbies, step outside of your comfort zone. The more you experiment, the better you'll become at identifying those areas where you truly shine.
And once you find those areas, you can start building habits that nurture your growth and development in those areas. It's about creating a life that feels aligned and fulfilling, a life where your habits support your passions and propel you towards your goals.
And remember, this process of self-discovery and habit formation is ongoing. It's not about finding the perfect set of habits and sticking with them rigidly. It's about being adaptable and open to adjusting your course as you learn and evolve.
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've explored so many facets of habit formation, from the power of tiny gains to the importance of finding the right habits for you. But there's one challenge that often looms large, even when we've set ourselves up for success: maintaining motivation over time. Even the most enjoyable habits can start to feel routine and lose their luster after a while. How do we keep the momentum going?
That's a question we'll tackle head on in the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned, because we'll be uncovering strategies for staying engaged and motivated even when those initial bursts of enthusiasm begin to fade. It's all about finding that sweet spot between challenge and enjoyment and embracing the long game of habit formation.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into atomic habits, and I'm ready to tackle that big question we left off with. How do we stay motivated and keep those good habits going even when the, initial excitement wears off?
Yeah, it's a challenge we all face, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to get swept up in the enthusiasm of starting something new.
Yeah.
But maintaining that momentum, over weeks, months, or even years, that's where the real work lies.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap of starting strong and then fizzling out? What are the secrets to keeping those good habits going even when the novelty fades?
Well, one key is understanding that motivation isn't a constant.
Okay.
It naturally ebbs and flows, right?
Right.
It's unrealistic to expect to be, supercharged by your habits every single day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In fact, Clear suggests that embracing a bit of boredom is actually a crucial part of mastering any skill or habit.
Embracing boredom, that sounds kind of counterintuitive. Isn't boredom like the enemy of motivation?
It might seem that way, but think about it. The things we find most rewarding in life often require us to push through those stretches of, monotony and discomfort.
Right.
Whether it's mastering a new skill, building a business, or nurturing a deep relationship, there are going to be times when the work feels tedious or challenging.
Right.
It's in those moments that we really test our commitment and build resilience.
It makes me think about those, elite athletes who train day in and day out, repeating the same drills over and over again. They must get bored sometimes, right?
Absolutely. But they've learned that the real magic happens in those moments of repetition and refinement.
Okay.
It's about showing up consistently, even when we don't feel like it.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Right. It is, as Clear puts it, professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way.
So it's not about always feeling, excited or inspired. It's about having that discipline to stick with the plan, even when it feels a bit mundane. But how do we cultivate that kind of discipline?
Well, besides sheer grit and determination, there are strategies for making those routine tasks more engaging. Clear introduces something called the Goldilocks rule.
The Goldilocks rule.
Yeah. It suggests that we're most motivated when we're working on tasks that are just slightly beyond our current ability.
Okay. So it's about finding that sweet spot, not too easy, not too hard, just the right amount of challenge to keep us, engaged and motivated.
Exactly.
But how do we find that just right level?
Well, that's where the idea of habit shaping comes in. We start with a small, manageable version of the habit and then gradually increase the difficulty or duration as we become more proficient.
So instead of trying to run a marathon on day one, we might start with a 10-minute walk.
Right.
And slowly increase the distance or intensity as we get fitter.
Exactly. By gradually raising the bar,
Right.
we keep the habit challenging enough to stay engaged, but not so difficult that we get overwhelmed and give up.
Yeah.
It's about um, pushing our boundaries without breaking them.
It's like a video game, you know? Starting with easier levels and gradually unlocking new challenges as you level up.
I like that, yeah.
But even with a gradual approach, routine can still creep in. How do we combat that?
Well, variety is key. Even small tweaks can reignite that spark.
Right.
If you're bored with your workout, try a new class, a different route, or listen to a new playlist. If writing has become a chore, experiment with a new format or join a writing group.
It's about finding ways to shake things up to keep our brains engaged and prevent those habits from feeling, stale and repetitive.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not about changing the activity itself, but changing our mindset.
Yeah.
We can learn to appreciate the process, the small moments of satisfaction and accomplishment that come with showing up and doing the work.
So even if we're not thrilled about every single step, we can still find joy in the feeling of progress, knowing that we're moving towards something meaningful.
Precisely. And this ties back to something we talked about earlier, the power of identity-based habits. When we see ourselves as consistent, disciplined individuals committed to growth, it becomes easier to stick with those habits, even when motivation wanes.
It's like having that inner compass that guides us back to our goals, even when we're tempted to deviate from the path.
Exactly. And with each step we take, we reinforce that identity, creating a powerful cycle of growth and progress. Remember, building better habits is a journey, not a destination. There will be bumps in the road, times when motivation dips, and moments of boredom. But by understanding the science of habit formation and applying these strategies, you're equipping yourself to navigate those challenges and emerge stronger on the other side.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. We've explored so many facets of habit formation, from the power of tiny gains in the habit loop to the importance of environment design and finding the right habits, to the challenge of staying motivated over time. What are some of the key takeaways you hope our listener will carry with them?
Above all, I hope they remember that building better habits is a process, not a quick fix.
Right.
It's about making small, consistent changes over time and trusting that those changes will compound and create remarkable results. It's not about perfection. It's about progress.
And it's not just about, willpower. It's about understanding the science of habit formation and using those principles to our advantage.
Exactly. We have the power to design our environment, make those habits appealing and rewarding, track our progress, find supportive accountability partners, and most importantly, choose habits that align with our strengths, passions, and goals.
It's about creating a system that sets us up for success rather than relying on willpower alone.
You got it. And finally, I hope our listener remembers that they're capable of incredible change. By understanding the power of habits, they can literally shape their future one small step at a time.
That's a powerful thought to end on. So to our listener, we encourage you to think about those habits you've always wanted to develop. Now that you have a deeper understanding of how habits work, what is one small step you can take today to make that habit a reality? Remember, even the tiniest action can set in motion a ripple effect of positive change. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits. Your dedication to learning is a powerful habit in itself, and we're excited to see what you accomplish as you continue to explore the world of atomic habits.